I hereby call to order the September 25th, 2017 council meeting for the City of Mayfield Heights. May I have a roll call, please?
Mr. DeJohn?
Present.
Mrs. Finney?
Here.
Mr. Mano?
Here.
Mr. Mercurio?
Here.
Mrs. Sabetta?
Here.
Mrs. Snyder?
Here.
Mrs. Tressi?
Here. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. This evening, we have a special presentation. It's Resolution 2017-60. Is there a motion to suspend the rules?
Moved.
Moved by Mr. Mano, seconded by Mrs. Snyder. Roll call on the motion to suspend.
Mr. Mano?
Yes.
Mr. Mercurio?
Yes.
Mr. DeJohn?
Yes.
Mrs. Sabetta? Yes. Mrs. Finney?
Yes.
Mrs. Snyder?
Yes.
Mrs. Tressi?
Yes. Do I have a motion to approve? Moved by Mrs. Snyder, seconded by Mr. DeJohn. Roll call on the motion to approve.
Mr. DeJohn?
Yes.
Mrs. Snyder?
Yes.
Mrs. Finney?
Yes.
Mr. Mercurio?
Yes.
Mr. Mano?
Yes.
Mrs. Sabetta?
Yes.
Mrs. Tressi?
Yes. Mayor, will you read the resolution, please?
Thank you, Madam President. Rob, if you'd like to come up and be center stage for this presentation. I have to stay back here, so I'm on the microphone, but if you'd like to stay there while I read the resolution. This is resolution number 2017-60, introduced by myself and all members of council. A resolution commending Corporal Robert C. Lord III upon his retirement from the police department of the city of Mayfield Heights, Ohio. Whereas Robert C. Lord III has served with distinction in the Mayfield Heights Police Department for a period of 25 years with the highest degree of dedication, humility, loyalty, and perseverance. And whereas Rob began his career with the Mayfield Heights Police Department on July 19, 1992, and whereas he received corporal status on March 15, 2004, having met the standards and qualifications for the position. And whereas during his tenure, Rob served as an evidence technician from 1994 to 1998, was a member of the SPAN gang unit from 1993 to 1995, was also a member of the city's bike unit and SPAN accident investigation unit. And whereas he was also a canine officer with his dog Rico from 1998 to 2001. And whereas Rob's efforts and sense of responsibility have given our city the finest in police protection, for which we are grateful and proud. And whereas Rob has chosen to retire as of July 18th, 2017, taking with him our heartfelt thanks for a job well done. Now therefore be it resolved by the Council of the City of Mayfield Heights, State of Ohio, that the administration, the City Council, and the residents of Mayfield Heights extend their congratulations to Robert C. Lord III on his retirement from the Mayfield Heights Police Department and wish to express their deepest appreciation to Rob for his years of devoted service and sincerely wish him a happy, successful future. Passed September 25th, 2017, attested by Robert G. Tribby, Clerk, also Gail M. Teresi, President of Council, and myself. Congratulations, Rob.
Thank you, everybody. It was a pleasure. But the true hero is the person that was at home all the time taking care of the kids. Taking care of the home, doing all the family stuff, all the activities without the dad around, and kept the house in a good working order. And that would be my wife, Lisa, here. And again, thank you for the opportunity.
Congratulations, Rob.
Congratulations, Rob. That was lovely. Okay, we'll now move on to acceptance of our minutes from our last meeting of September 11th. Hope everyone has had the opportunity to go over the minutes. Is there a motion to approve? Moved by Mrs. Finney, seconded by Mrs. Sabetta. Are there any suggested changes, deletions, or amendments to the minutes? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The minutes of our September 11th meeting have been approved. We'll next move on to correspondence and announcements. Does any member of council have correspondence or announcements to share? Mrs. Sabetta.
Thank you, Madam President. I am a member of the Regional Commission on Oil and Gas Well Study and Exploration. This commission has made an enormous difference in the process of preparing information for distribution. I am happy to announce that our website is now online and has been distributed to the Mayfield Heights website under government. I also received correspondence from a resident who lives on a very busy street commending the police for a new stop sign, and here's hoping everyone sees it and stops. But she would like me to mention that there are many negative comments and complaints, and that this is why she feels it important to share a positive one. And this is a positive one, and she hopes to brighten everyone's day by this sign. We also all, as council, received another correspondence concerning Resolution 2017-61, and we can address that when it comes up. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Sabetta. Are there any other announcements from council? Seeing none, we'll next move on to the reports of our officers, and we will begin with our mayor, Mayor DeSico.
Thank you, Madam President. Good evening. On Wednesday, the 13th, a joint meeting of the ABR, BZA, and Planning Commission was held. We have been meeting quarterly to discuss implementation of our Mayfield Heights Retail Corridor Design Manual. At this meeting, we were able to discuss a potential new restaurant's plans in our city. Although the business wishes to remain anonymous for now, being able to discuss the building orientation, ingress, egress options, along with trying to find any other potential issues, was very helpful. If this project does come to fruition, it will be the first new commercial space to fall under our new guidelines, and I'm looking forward to that outcome. On September 14th, Senator Kenny Yuko held a meeting on economic development, business retention, and job creation in District 25. There was a lot of discussion and idea sharing with neighboring communities. A representative from Team NEO shared key components vital to cities in attracting new companies. And Jobs Ohio discussed revitalization programs to put into practice to repurpose vacant properties and/or land. On tonight's agenda is Resolution 2017-64, recommending the admission of Beechwood into the Norma self-insurance pool. Each city's legislative body must pass a resolution approving a new member per the bylaws. I would urge council to approve, as Beechwood joining Norma will definitely be a positive move for the members. If anyone is looking for a way to help the victims of Hurricane Harvey, but are not quite sure how to help or who you can trust to help, Rabbi Matt Eisenberg from Temple Israel, Ner Tamid, has informed me that they have started a drive to fill the tractor trailer that is currently parked on the temple's front lawn. Rabbi Eisenberg also did this in 2012 for the victims of Hurricane Sandy. items being collected are new clothing, baby products, paper towels, cleaning supplies, toilet paper, personal care items, school supplies, and a host of other supplies. They are accepting donations until the trailer is filled, which is most likely next week. They plan on doing it pretty quick. And lastly, in March of this year, council voted to place a moratorium on medical marijuana facilities in the city. The moratorium ended the 13th of this month, and we have been receiving calls as to the city's position on this issue. And I would suggest that council extend the moratorium, which in discussion with the law director, we need to have some new legislation. We cannot just extend the old moratorium. So I would suggest that Mr. Murphy, since he'll be here next meeting, have some new legislation. So maybe we could extend the moratorium and gather more information so we can have an educated decision. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Mayor. Are there any questions for the mayor? Thank you. Next, we'll go to a report from our interim law director, Mr. Schmidlin.
I am very pleased to report that Paul Murphy will be returning this week from his vacation, and not a moment too soon for me. Otherwise, there's nothing new to report.
Well, we always enjoy having you visit us.
Thank you very much.
Next, we'll move on to a report from our Director of Finance, Mr. Tribby.
I had no report tonight.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Mr. Tribby? Seeing none, we'll move on to our reports of committees, commissions, and boards, and we will begin with our Building Committee, Mr. DeJohn.
Thank you, Madam President. I have no report this evening.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Mr. DeJohn? We'll move on to our Finance and Audit Committee, Mrs. Sabetta.
Thank you, Madam President. Supplemental appropriation of ordinance number 2017-19 is on the agenda. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there questions for Mrs. Sabetta? We'll next move on to our Legislative Committee, Mrs. Snyder.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We have not had a meeting, so I have no report.
Thank you. I have one question, Mrs. Sabetta. I know that we did have one meeting on the item that's tabled on indigent decedent policy. Are you planning on scheduling another meeting?
Yeah, I talked to our law director after the last meeting, and he said he was waiting on some more information, and he would talk about it when he comes back with me. So we'll schedule that.
Great, thank you.
Correction. You said Mrs. Sabetta.
Oh, I did. I'm so sorry, Mrs. Snyder.
Thank you.
I
I knew
apologize.
you were talking to me.
Well, you're both on that same committee, so you both must know what's going on. Okay, we'll move on to Public Works and Services Committee, Mr. Mercurio.
Thank you, Madam President. I do have a few bullet points here. Work on SOM Center is continuing, as everyone knows, and it's moving along quite well, and we should hit, it should be completed in mid-October. As everyone knows, there was a water main break on Lander Road and last week, so special thanks to the night crew and the road crew for hustling and getting that cleaned up and getting that road open to traffic. The park crew started to make some improvements around 271, the clover leaves, cleaning that up and sweeping up under the bridge and applying some top dressing, so we're getting that area cleaned up. And as everyone can see, the leaves are starting to fall a little bit early this year, so Service Department has gotten those leaf trailers ready to go, and we anticipate that leaf collection will start in a couple weeks. With our partnership with the Solid Waste District, we're scheduled to have about 100 scrap tires picked up. I think it's sometime this week. Is that correct, Joe? At some point this week, so that'll be cleaned up back there. And we have, the Service Department has submitted a grant with Keep Ohio Beautiful to help us get some recycling containers and trash bags that we'd be able to use at next year's Unity Days. And that completes my report.
Thank you, Mr. Mercurio. Are there any, Mr. Mano?
Joe, I got one question. The work on SOM Center, we had to appropriate, if I'm not mistaken, $400,000 as our share of replacing that road bed under that street. Did we in fact do that?
Yeah, that was appropriated, wasn't that, Bob?
Not only was it appropriate, it was paid.
Paid.
We had to pay up
Paid
front.
ahead of- Yeah.
They indeed replaced the roadbed. They dug it out and they replaced the roadbed. Is that correct?
Well,
I'll defer to
you-
Mr.
I was
Fenaro
just
on
gonna
that,
do,
yeah.
Mr. Gerson, do you want to come up
Mr.
and,
Gerson.
answer? Please state your name and address for the record.
Dan Gerson, city engineer, home address 8325 Midland Road, Mentor, Ohio. I'll try to answer the questions regarding SOM. The project was designed by the previous firm, but the plan was to do a resurfacing and to repair the damaged roadbed or the base repairs, of which we are responsible for 100% of the base repairs, and we're responsible for a portion of the resurfacing. So the process has been is that they've taken off the surface asphalt. Joe and myself, as well as ODOT reps, have gone out, walked the site, have marked up the repairs that need to be done, and then those have been done. They've done that in both areas, and then now they're just doing adjustments for manholes and then we'll overlay it. So it wasn't a complete road replacement of the base.
So they didn't indeed replace the entire roadbed.
Correct, they did
All right,
not.
so are we gonna get reimbursed for some of that $400,000? If that work didn't need to be done,
That $400,000 was not for the replacement of the entire roadbed, it was for a portion of the replacement. So when you have basically what you have is you have a base layer of concrete, and then you have asphalt over top, so they took the asphalt off,
right?
and then the concrete that's underneath, which I think is what you're referring to as the roadbed, areas of that was repaired. We're responsible for 100% of that. Not all of it needed to be replaced, but areas that were bad are being replaced.
My question is, did we spend $400,000 in repairs? Or do we have some money coming back to us? Because it doesn't look like there was that much extensive work done on that roadbed.
Yeah, so what you have is, I don't have the exact count of what's been done, but I have been following with ODOT. ODOT's tracking that area, and I actually sent an email today asking for an update on where they're at. I don't have an actual cost on where we're at, but we will be paying for what was done.
All right, can you get those numbers to us so we know how much of that
Absolutely.
was included in that
We'll
money?
have that count, it's kind of a running count. As they get it done, they kind of update it with us, and when they're completely done, we'll have all those numbers for
And
you.
when is the finish coat going on there? I've been getting a lot of phone calls from people hitting those manhole covers.
Yeah, they're anticipating mid-October to be done with the project.
Okay, thank you.
Madam,
Any other questions?
Mr. Tribby wants to address,
I'll stay here.
Mr. Gerson or Mr. Mano or Council.
Mr. Mano, I mentioned $425,000. That's what we had to pay to ODOT when they took the bids for the project, which we are responsible for. What Mr. Gerson was talking about, the base repair, he's correct. We have to pay whatever that is. Now, what the resurfacing winds up costing, we may get some of that $425 back. Depends on what the bids were that they awarded to the company that's doing the actual resurfacing part. But I don't know what that is, but like Dan said, that will be determined.
When we discussed that project initially, if I recall, we were told that ODOT was gonna pick up a percentage of the job, but that Mayfield Heights was gonna be responsible for that roadbed, and that was going to be approximately $460,000, I believe, was the number that was bantied about. And that we were solely responsible for the roadbed. ODOT was not responsible for the roadbed. And what I'm saying to you is, it didn't look like there was that much roadbed replacement done there. And in light of that, if we have any reimbursement coming back to us, I mean, that would be a very good thing.
There may be some offset, I don't know, but they will determine that later.
Yeah, we'll have those numbers for you. I can tell you that the bids did come in, at least for unit costs, lower than what was anticipated by the engineer's estimate originally, so that's a good thing. We're getting more bang for the buck.
And is it Burton Scott that's doing the
Burton Scott is the general contractor.
general contractor? I really thought it was gonna be, like you were gonna work at, they were, not you, they were gonna work at night but driving down Som Center at night, it doesn't look like they've done a lot of digging out down to the concrete. I
Yeah,
haven't seen them work at
We've had
night.
a lot of conversations back and forth with ODOT. I would say we'd like to see a little more work done at night. At this point, I know the contract was let late, not by any means by Bayfield Heights. It was just ODOT process.
Right.
So I think they're kind of in a hurry to get it done, so they are trying to get it done. And we've been in constant contact with ODOT, trying to keep them moving ahead.
I know we thought, and when we discussed this a while ago, we discussed on how bad Som Center was. And my assumption, and I understand it was just an assumption, is that it was gonna be similar to the work that was done in Mayfield Village, where they just tore out one whole lane and you drove in,
Yeah,
next lane.
I can tell
But
you.
yeah, we haven't had any of that.
Yeah.
It looks like the road's already
Yeah, I can-
top dressed and,
I can tell you, an engineer, you look at the surface and you say, boy, that underlying material is probably in bad shape. It was in a lot better shape than what we anticipated, or at least when I looked at it, that I would have anticipated. So by no fault of any of the other engineers that worked on the project, you look at it and you kind of make an assumption, and hopefully an engineer to guess, I guess, if you will. And then, you hope that you're anticipating the right amount, because obviously when we ask you for funds, we're trying to make sure you have a budget to go by. And in this case, stuff that's torn up is not as bad as what we anticipate or anybody else anticipated. So the quantity should be less, but the overall cost, I don't have those numbers right hand, but we can get those for you.
thank you. Mr. DeJohn, I saw your hand up.
Mr. Gerson, the curbs, are they gonna be replacing some of those curbs?
Yeah, they are gonna do some of the curbs, and the curbs, I believe, are 100% by the city also. Curbs, sidewalks.
So that comes after the paving, or?
Right now, they're doing all the base repair that needs to be done. They're doing any of the adjustments, and they'll do the curbs also, the areas that we've deemed that come up. Catch
Oh.
basin, there's a couple catch basins.
And who's doing that work?
I believe that's Perk, that's the subcontractor on that, to Burton Scott. Burton Scott is overall responsible for that, but I believe it's Perk that's the concrete contractor.
Okay, thank you.
Madam President, if I could.
Mayor.
Yeah, at the end of the jobs, whenever we have the big projects like this, there's a post, meeting that Joe and the engineer get together, go over all the amounts that were used and make sure we're paying the right amount of money. That happens with all the jobs.
That's correct.
Mr. DeJohn.
Just one last comment. I hope that road stays a little bit better than the Mayfield Village part, since Mayfield Village part already went through one winter.
I can't comment on that.
Okay, so,
Smart
we'll
man.
be talking if it
Yes,
does.
sir.
Thank you, Mr. Gerson.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Are there any other questions for Mr. Mercurio and Public Works? Okay, let's move on to Recreation and Parks Committee, Mr. Mano.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Registration is underway for LBJ basketball. The popular program for kids has two groups, K first and second and third. Mayfield Heights Halloween party is scheduled for Saturday, October 28th at the DeJohn Community Center from 11 a.m. to 12:30 p.m. The cost is $7 per person per ticket. Tickets must be purchased in advance. The next adult afternoon out is on October the 10th. Chicken and dumplings, side, homemade bread, dessert, and coffee will be served. Entertainment is Eric Knowlton Camper. The cost is $10 and reservations must be made in advance. Our October lunch bunch will be going to Winking Lizard on October 25th at 11:30. If interested, a reservation must be made. Teen Halloween, Thursday, October the 19th from 6 to 9 for Mayfield Middle School students in grades 6 through 8. Admission is $18 pre-sale and includes games and food. Additional money is needed for a raffle. Look for flyers in your Mayfield Middle School folder handouts. Wildcat Sport and Fitness Pickleball Tournament at Wildcat Sport and Fitness, men's and women's doubles, fun double elimination. tournament is for those 50 years and older and will be held on October 21st from 9 a.m. to noon. The cost is $20 per team. For any information on any recreational program, please call the office at 442-2627. Healthy Mayfield, join us for a collaborative effort between the Cleveland Clinic and our Mayfield community partners to promote optimal health and wellness within our community. This free event will take place on Wednesday, October the 4th from 5:30 to 7:30 p.m. at Wildcat Park, the high school stadium. This community event will include health screenings, cooking demonstrations, healthy food samplings, fitness demonstrations, and it will be a kid-friendly activity and more. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mano. Are there any questions for Mr. Mano? We'll move on to Safety and Transportation Committee. Mrs. Finney.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I have no report.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Mrs. Finney? We'll move on to our Board of Zoning Appeals. Mr. Mercurio.
Thank you, Madam President. We have several items on tonight's agenda that we can address when they come up.
Thank you. Are there questions for Mr. Mercurio? We'll move on to Planning Commission. Mr. DeJohn.
Thank you, Madam President. Our meeting was canceled due to a lack of an agenda, so I don't have a report. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we'll move on to our public portion. Pursuant to Section 121.02, subsection H8 of the Codified Ordinances, each person will be allowed 5 minutes to speak with a maximum of 30 minutes for the entire public portion. Although this is not a time for public debate, this is your opportunity to address council with any of your concerns. There will be no personal attacks allowed during this period. If you would like to be heard this evening, please raise your hand and be recognized, then approach the podium, state your name and address for the record. It is now 7:28 p.m. and I will open the public portion. Please.
We're Lyndon and George Fairber, and we live at 1685 Hawthorne Drive. And we'll be in our house 44 years, October 9th. And
we've noticed a lot of things like people parking their parking cars on the lawn. And that really looks like it's kind of stupid. I mean, you know, you look, you're somewhere, you know, I hate to say it, but Hillbilly Heaven or something. You know, and I've seen a lot of these homes around. People aren't taking care of them. People are moving out of them, and they seem to be leaving and, you know, putting up for rent or whatever, and not taking care of them. The yards haven't been taken care of.
a house down our street just sold for $54,000.
I mean, some of this stuff is really, you know, really bad. We have one home.
I took a picture of it. Today was trash day.
You can set it.
There's junk in the front yard, and it was trash day.
Mrs. Farber, put it right there on the large flat section. Just move it over a little bit. It'll come up for everyone to see. Well, a little bit more. Push it. That's a girl. Okay, there we go.
This house, we're praying for the house next door. They have their house for sale. This house, when you drive by,
Move your hand, honey.
terrible. And today was trash day. Now he's got a bunch of junk in the front. Right now it looks good compared to what looks like.
And if you look in the backyards of some of these homes, you'd really be surprised that, you know, people don't, you know, because I have to look in my backyard and see what my neighbor has, and if they don't keep their yards up, you know, and unfortunately, I have one neighbor that does, and I have a fence on the other side, so I don't have to worry about it.
We were a public
There are
restaurant.
some other people that don't keep up their yards, and that is really, you know, frustrating, irritating. Plus, not to get into anything more, but we have, you know, some of, like, we live on Hawthorne. Now, there's a strip mall there, shopping center. The front looks like they have some business, but the back looks like there's nothing back there. I mean, can't somebody do something with that? Can't the city take and come in and say, hey,
Behind
we have,
Sonic and all
we
that.
have
That's
to
a
ta-
great spot for people to do drug deals.
we have to take and, you
It's
know,
dark.
redo or clean up, you know, I mean, it looks really terrible. You know, as a visitor from another city, you know, would I wanna buy a home here?
Oh,
Maybe not,
We
you
were
know?
talking to people at the restaurant we didn't even know. They said they drove down our street, and once they saw a particular tree and how some other houses were being taken care of, they said, we're not buying here. We don't even know who they were.
So, I mean, you know, these are, you know, these are some of the concerns that, if, I mean, I know city council can't do everything, but you could clean up, get the people to quit parking their cars on the lawns, or, you know, just because it's
Yeah.
convenient.
Go drive by that
You know,
house.
clean up
But
your- clean
I
up
bet
your-
none of you would wanna buy a house next door to that.
Clean up, you know, clean up your yards in the back, clean up your yards, the front, you know, make it look like a real nice, you know, try to put some pride into it. You know, and
Now,
maybe,
now recycling, those cans are too big. We can barely get our car in our garage. And so now people have them everywhere. And then when older people and different ones try to bring stuff to recycling, they're complaining how terrible this is. Why are there such short hours? Go ahead and take their license, but have it more hours. I have a lot of people that are complaining when they see me over there. They can't come and maybe at those particular hours. At least extend the hours for Mayfield Heights. Why are we punished because other people tried to bring trash to our city? Go ahead and videotape their plates and help a lot of citizens that way too.
Mr. Jameson, can you come up and take this photo and possibly help these residents by looking at the property next door?
Oh, this is down the street. You have next door.
oh, this is,
Yeah.
that's what he's looking at. This is, yeah, this is down the street.
I mean-
Corner.
Right up by the apartments.
Okay, well,
And the people next door have their house for sale. I feel sorry for them.
okay, let me explain. This is probably on our radar.
Mr. Jameson, speak into the microphone so Lisa can get it in the minutes.
This is probably somewhere on our radar as far as exterior maintenance goes. But we have a system, a complaint-driven system, that you can call us anytime. Give us the address, somebody will go out there and take a look at it.
We look at the backyards too?
Well, we can only go in the backyard. We can go, if you let us in your backyard to look at the backyard, then we can go, then we can see what's there.
When you drive by,
Cause
you can
I
see
know,
it.
Well, yeah.
I know the people that live in this house on the other side, and I know they'll let you in.
'Cause she
Okay.
works
You know.
she's a barber.
You know, I mean,
The
I know.
best-
They're not happy either.
Right, the best way to do it, call us with whatever you want us to follow up on,
Here's
any kind of complaint.
With
I
the
will,
address in the back, Linda?
oh, sure, I'll look at the,
Well, you can have this.
we'll look at this house tomorrow.
Alright,
Okay.
Anything else, call, we'll log the complaint in, we'll go take care of it, and then we'll,
alright.
report you to
Does that,
follow.
it look, when you go by now, it looks good compared to what it was.
Yeah.
You know, and sometimes you find these people
Is
that,
this the backyard, or what's that?
That's junk in his front yard.
Okay.
I took it just before we
Okay,
came here.
so the structure, the house itself doesn't look that bad.
no, the structure itself maybe, but you know, when you have junk all over.
Okay, so,
Just drive by and look for yourself.
okay, well, I
That's
understand
all I
that, it's more of a junk in the yard.
Yeah, I mean.
Yeah, you can see it in the backyard.
If-
We'll take a look at that tomorrow, but call the building department anytime. You can be anonymous, however you wanna do it.
We don't wanna be
We'll take care of it
We'll let
and,
you know.
Oh,
and get
and
back to you.
another question we have, like, if your driveway is bad, instead of doing concrete, can you put blacktop on your driveway?
No, it has to be one or the other. You have to have all asphalt or all concrete.
I could go all asphalt from
maybe Mr. Jameson could take him out in the hall and discuss this stuff with him?
Well, I
Thank-
mean, I don't think there's more to
No,
discuss,
that,
is there?
yeah, we're done.
It's just a question.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you very,
Right.
thank you, Mr. Jameson. Is, is there anyone else that would like to be heard this evening? Seeing no one, we will close our public portion at 7:36 PM. We will now move on to resolutions. We'll begin with Resolution 2017-61. Mr. Schmidlin.
Thank you, Madam President. Resolution number 2017-61, a resolution confirming the action of the Board of Zoning Appeals of the City of Mayfield Heights in granting to Michael Pagel, 1674 Woodrow Avenue, a variance to allow a commercial vehicle to be parked in the driveway at 1674 Woodrow Avenue, Cuyahoga County permanent parcel number 86306-096 and 097.
Is there a, excuse me, is there a motion to suspend the rules? Moved by Mrs. Finney, seconded by Mr. Mercurio. Roll call on the motion to suspend.
Mrs. Finney?
Yes.
Mrs. Sabetta?
Yes.
Mrs. Snyder?
Yes.
Mr. Mano? Mr. DeJohn?
Yes.
Mr. Mercurio?
Yes.
Mrs. Tressi?
Yes, do I have a motion to approve? Moved by Mrs. Snyder, seconded by Mrs. Sabetta. This resolution comes to us from the BZA. It was case 1112 regarding parking a commercial vehicle at the residential property of Michael Pagel. The case was passed with a 3-2 vote. Mr. Mercurio, would you like to add anything?
Yeah, that's correct. It was a 3-2 approval. I can tell you the three folks who did vote for it felt that he did have a practical difficulty. He is in the heating and cooling business. He's on call 24/7. All members of his company do take their vehicles to their homes so they can be dispatched right away. He's kind of limited with the lot that he has, that he can't build a bigger garage to get the van in or anything like that. So they felt that was the practical difficulty. However, I actually voted no on it, as did Mr. Kramer. And the thing that did it for me was his place of business has an office on Richmond and Chardon where he can go ahead and park that vehicle. So I think in this case we'd have to enforce, in my opinion, I'd like to enforce the ordinance on this one.
Thank you, Mr. Mercurio. I agree with you. I drove to the office and I printed a picture. There are other cars there and looks like plenty of parking at Central Heating and Air Conditioning. I think it's really very important that we enforce our ordinances. I'm sure Mr. Pagel isn't the only one with a commercial vehicle. I took another picture on Chelmsford of a big truck, and what he did is he put a magnetic sign over the side of it to hide the name of the vendor that he works for. I also received an email. I think it went out to all council members. Dear friends and members of Mayfield Heights City Council, I was thrown a curve when I looked over the agenda for the upcoming September 25th council meeting. By the way, I do not know, nor to the best of my knowledge, have I ever met Mr. Pagel, 1674 Woodrow. Apparently, the BZA has seen fit to continue stepping away from our municipal code, and now they voted to allow a commercial vehicle to be regularly kept on the householder's driveway in a residential neighborhood. Let us be clear, parked in the driveway really means kept and stored on the driveway all day, all night, and if they want to, all the time. To allow that would only be a sharp break from the Mayfield Heights Municipal Code, but put us as a community on a slippery slope toward having all sorts of commercial vehicles all over the city, running down the appearance, the cohesiveness, good order, and tranquility of our residential neighborhoods. If on Monday, September 25th, by a majority vote of our city council, this is permitted, soon there will be heavy trucks and commercial vans with multicolored signs, pictures, advertising designs of all sorts, all over them, parked in our residential neighborhoods at all times, and we could do nothing to stop them. I have no doubt the courts would find that approval of this resolution would then force us to accept all of the above and more. Once a floodgate like this is open, you will never be able to stop the onrushing tide of further commercialization throughout our residential neighborhoods that would spread like an infectious disease. If all persons are to be treated equally, as they must be, then our confirmation of this disastrous move by BZA will mean any commercial vehicle can be parked any place, anywhere, at any time. If you let this start, there will be no stopping it, and no tweaking of the ordinance will work. For the 47 years I've lived in Mayfield Heights, the law has been very easy for everyone to understand. If a vehicle is registered with any form of commercial plate, it cannot be kept outdoors in a residential neighborhood. My recollection is that Councilman Mano, to his credit, kept the commercial van for his business in his garage, not his driveway. Jimmy Teresi was in business for years. He did not park his commercial vehicles at home in the driveway. There are many others I could cite where solid, responsible, community-minded persons chose to follow the law and not inflict such a blight upon our residential neighborhood. There are not words in my vocabulary sufficient to urge you strongly enough. That came from one of our residents on Som Center. Mr. DeJohn.
So do we know how long Mr. Pagels lived in that house?
It hasn't been very long. I think it's been a couple of years. I don't know, is
The applicant is here.
Okay, is he here? Okay.
Mr. Pagel, would you like to come up to the podium and state your name and address for the record?
My name is Mike Pagel. I live at 1674 Woodrow Avenue, Mayfield Heights, Ohio. I've lived there, I closed on the house April of last year, April 29th of last year.
And I know the truck's been there because I've seen it since then, so why all
It
of?
was also on Roselawn 5 years prior to being there.
And
I mean,
nobody
you
ever said
guys
anything?
are making it seem like it's only my vehicle and a couple others, but there are hundreds of commercial vehicles parked throughout this city. If it's an ordinance, I understand it's an ordinance, but it needs to be enforced to all, not just when somebody complains.
You're exactly right. That's
You are
that's true.
exactly
What's
right.
good for you is good for me, and what's good for
I feel I'm being
me.
singled out here. Ever since I moved across the community center, that truck's been a problem. The police station's at the corner of Roselawn for 5 years, never a problem. Parked on the street, parked at the end of the driveway, never a problem.
Mr. Mano.
I want to read to you what the ordinance states on this, all right? 118913, parking or storage of commercial vehicles. In a residential district, the outside parking or storage of a commercial vehicle is prohibited except for service to premises. An occupier or resident of a residential district who uses a commercial vehicle in his or her occupation is permitted to store such commercial vehicle out of view in a garage, which is an accessory use permitted under the zoning code. As used in this section, commercial vehicle means any vehicle that has license plates attached thereto with the designation of truck or commercial thereon, provided that the capacity or payload of such vehicle is in excess of 3/4 of a ton in weight. Any vehicle that is not a passenger-type vehicle, or any vehicle that is marked or identified by lettering, symbols, signs pertaining to commercial purposes, or that has attached thereto any scaffolding, ladders, plows, cranes, hooks, hoists, backhoes, or other tools or devices, and that is being used for commercial purposes. So the ordinance is very, very clear. The unfortunate thing is that we don't get the enforcement of that ordinance that we should be getting. I've had calls for a long, long time about commercial vehicles parked in driveways. I've called the police department myself on several occasions for commercial vehicles parked in driveways. I had a tractor trailer parking the tractor in the guy's driveway. If you have a commercial vehicle, you need to figure out what you need to do to to keep that vehicle in compliance with this ordinance. I've had a business in this city for 37 years. I started out with a station wagon. When I graduated to a full-size van, the day I brought that new van home and put it in my driveway, my neighbor was sitting on her back porch. She said to me, "Boy, I hope I'm not gonna have to look at that every day." And I said, "No, you're not. I will take care of it." I went and I got myself a home equity line loan, and I built a garage to house that vehicle. And I've not had any problems ever since then. So I guess what I'm saying to you is we have to comply with this ordinance, and I would ask my colleagues, Susan, Diane, Joe, any of you, would you like to see that commercial vehicle parked next door to your house in the driveway and look at it 24/7? Would you like to do that? Because I know I wouldn't. And if you tell me it wouldn't bother you, I would say you're being disingenuous, because that would bother anybody. On Rose Lawn, you probably didn't get the complaints because not that many people saw it. But where it is now, everybody sees it. I've had phone calls on it. I'm just telling you, going around this city, you will find commercial vehicles anywhere and everywhere, and they don't belong here. And it's got to be taken care of. The code is clear. We just need to enforce it. Thank you.
Mr. Pagel, you say you're on call, you work 6 days a week, you're on call 24 hours a day. When you get that call, it comes from your office on Richmond Road, or what?
Comes from my boss.
Okay, it comes from your boss. And does he give, he gives you an address, go to, whatever address. Do you have a time to get there? Do your response time, is it an hour? Is it 15 minutes? That you wouldn't have time to drive to Richmond and Chardon Road, pick up your truck, and get to that assignment?
Depends what the situation is. Every situation is different. If you have a water spigot that breaks, the last thing you want is for me to drive 20 minutes to my shop, to drive 20 minutes back to your city while water pours in your basement. If you think calling the water department's gonna help you, it's not, because they're gonna take hours. So every situation's different. It could be a 90-year-old woman. I worked for someone in Strongsville today, 94 years old, no heat, 84 degrees in the house. Just came there from, just came from there to get to here. Every situation's different.
It's ironic, I had a call from a resident today about a food truck being parked in their driveway on Woodrow. I've had a few, and today one resident called and said, we have this food truck. So.
Also the Numa water truck too.
I'm sorry?
The Numa water truck as well.
I mean, it's definitely a problem. It definitely is a problem. And residents are beginning to, residents have complained. It's a problem. Mr. DeJohn.
Mr. Jameson, is the pad that truck is parked on legal? I don't believe so. Of course, Mr. Pagel wouldn't know because probably was there when he bought the house.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure. The police department handles commercial vehicles parked in residential neighborhoods.
But I'm asking about the pad that's there, the concrete pad. I don't believe that's legal. And if the pad wasn't there, Mr. Pagel couldn't park there then.
Well, we don't know if it was there or not. I'll look into it. I'll give you a call.
Thank you.
Madam President,
Mrs. Sabetta.
thank you. So you just moved in to your new house. How did you find out that you needed a variance?
I got a letter in the mail.
Who sent you the letter?
Officer Woods, I believe.
So were you ever warned by Officer Woods, or?
He came by once, maybe like 3 or 4 days after I moved in there and said something, and I told him how I felt about the situation, and that was the last I heard until a month ago. A couple months ago, maybe.
Did he tell you you were able to park your truck there?
He didn't say anything about being able to or not to.
So why did he stop?
something you would have to ask him. I couldn't answer a question for him.
He stopped and then he sent a letter, but he must have stopped for a reason. No, he just,
He
maybe he
didn't tell you
stopped
there
to
were
say
any-
hello.
You're asking me a question I possibly
Cannot answer. Mrs. Snyder?
A couple things. I might have talked to him today. He said that he had gotten 2 complaints about the vehicle parking there. So that's when he addressed it. I don't know if it was by stopping there or a letter. I'm not sure. But I want to just say something. In 2002, we had a legislative committee meeting to go over the purpose of this ordinance. And from the review of this, the committee reviewed the legislation from Highland Heights, Lyndhurst, and Mayfield, and they're very similar to what we have here in our city. The issue was raised approximately twice since 1994, and neither review resulted in changing the ordinance. So I know we have looked at this a lot in the past. We did have a person that came before council because they were cited for a commercial truck in their driveway back, I believe, in 2002. We have seen this come about, and it happens more and more. Complaints come more and more. We've had a few on Parker recently that I've heard about.
becoming more and more common for people to drive company vehicles.
Well, we're beyond company vehicles. We're talking about large trucks. Last year, we had an RV issue, somebody parking their RV in the driveway. Today, I got this food truck on Woodrow. I mean, we're beyond commercial trucks with ladders or commercial trucks with logos. I think it's getting out of hand.
There's actually an RV at Walmart all weekend again. And I didn't feel like calling, I just thought, oh. I kept thinking it was gonna go away, that's
Yeah,
why.
they
It
just don't go away, Donna.
It was there it was gone by Monday morning.
By Monday?
Yeah.
Mr. Mano.
Just one more thing. I remember a conversation that I had with Chief Bittner a while ago, and I asked him about being more proactive with complaints and stuff, and he said to me that, because I made the comment, I says, you know, the ordinances are very clear. And he made the comment to me that none of his people know what the ordinances are. And recollecting that, I'm saying to myself, if Officer Woods got complaints on this, did he bother to read this ordinance before he did what he did in telling the applicant it was okay to park there? I mean, that's a question that should really be
He never
answered.
said it was okay to park there. He didn't say either it was okay or not.
He said neither.
Correct.
Okay.
Madam President?
I would urge this body to overturn BZA on this issue, because it's, all this is gonna do is exacerbate a major growing problem.
Mayor?
I appreciate Mr. Mano's comments about how he would like this issue to be dealt with, but to say, I would like to ask Chief Bittner if he would say that his guys don't know the rules and regulations that Mr. Mano just stated.
He did say
I would highly doubt that the chief would say his guys don't know the rules and regulations.
definitely said that to me.
Chief, would you like to come up? The comment is, was your guys don't know the rules and regulations to issue citations for parking violations, either trucks or cars.
That's not what I said. Chief, if you recollect, you and I sat in my driveway in my vehicle, this was some time back, and I had said to you, why can't your guys be more proactive in some of these things that they're seeing? They're out on the road, they see cars on lawns and so on and so forth. Why can't they take the initiative? And I said, all they gotta do is look at the ordinances. And you said to me, they don't read the ordinances, they don't know the ordinances. And that's what I just reiterated, because of the fact that this is very clear, very clearly defined. And if there was a complaint made on this, if the officer would have looked at this prior to going there, the outcome could have been a lot different. That's what I said.
We've been, this is the one on Marsall?
Correct.
Been involved in this since the, I guess, the resident moved in there. And
Lot
we've
of
been working with
complaints.
them. We're aware of the ordinances and what they say and how to enforce them. I've never said my guys don't know the ordinances, maybe specific building ordinances. But if you're talking about a parked commercial vehicle, we changed the parking tickets to match that, if you remember. So they could write that ordinance
All right, so,
without having to issue a summons the next day, which made it more difficult to do that. So we have changed things to make it better. Well, we went to this house, and the person moved his car out for a period of time. We re-noticed it there again. Corporal Woods went back and spoke with him. We began to speak with him again. Started telling us about it. He has a hardship over this. I spoke with the mayor. He said, well, maybe he could apply for a variance. And he talked to Mr. Jameson. He said yes. So we said we'll wait for the hearing and let that happen then. That's why we're at this point where we're at right now.
Chief, have you seen the food truck parked on Woodrow?
Yes, I have.
Oh, you have? I just got a call today. That's why I'm asking if you've,
There's probably 70 illegal trucks or more parked in the city. I can have my guys go out tomorrow and cite every one if you'd like. I mean,
so I'm just asking you.
but I'm saying that's the kind of enforcement, we could do that. But we've done that in the past, and we've had masses of people come to City Hall knocking at, not this mayor, other mayor's doors. And it was always became kind of the way we do things is as we get complaints. And if we've gotten a complaint on that, then we would have been over. I would have to ask Corporal Woods if he's gone over or had a complaint. And if he has, I'm sure he's talked to them. He usually gives them a week to move the vehicle, and then we begin starting to cite them. And I don't know that we have. I can find that out and let you know.
Madam President.
I just got this complaint today, so I printed the picture that was sent to me, and that's why I'm asking if.
Sure, if you pass that along, then we'll take that as a complaint.
Yeah, and I didn't know if anyone called you. You know, people always call their council people to say whatever. That's why I wondered if you, since this is, I guess, right around the corner from where Mr. Pagel.
I'm not aware that there was a complaint about it, like we've had one call in.
Madam President, I talked to Doug last week, and he is on that.
He is?
Yes.
So, that's good.
He told me today.
Oh, he told you today?
I did, I asked that question, and he had said that the person that lives there is a place that they're gonna be taking the vehicle to.
Good. Because I know last week I had another call about a boat that's been parked in the yard for 2 or 3 months. Typically, in the summer, your boat's in the water, but this boat has been there. I guess it's there winter, and it must be there in the summer because actually they just called. So, I don't know if they've called. I'll have to.
I mean, sometimes the building department gets called, sometimes we get the call on these different
And
things.
sometimes they call the council people.
Sometimes they call you, and,
yeah.
right, and it
So-
doesn't get to us, and then they know they complained, but then it never got to the police or the building department to go do anything about it.
Right, so what happens is someone tells us, and then we have to go to you or Corporal Woods or Mr. Jameson to find out.
We act on every complaint. I mean, there's not one we let go because we go, oh, that they've been parked there for 20 years. No, if we get the complaint, we will go there, we will act on every complaint. Are they actively pursuing all these and trying to go and cite these people? No. Because like I said, this goes back, this is like a 20, 25-year issue. You guys have all been here for many, many years, you're aware of that. And it kind of seemed like it meters itself out. If the neighbors around there can deal with it, then we feel like it's okay. If they can't, they call us and we take care of it. Sometimes a new person moves in and then it
And
brings
the
it up.
truck is gone, right. Mr. DeJohn.
Chief, do you think that's a good way to handle the situation?
Well-
Wait for the complaint? Because, you know, Mr. Pagel was saying, well, I was there a year, you know, all of a sudden they're coming and talking to me. You know, I mean, if some of these other people that get complaints after, you know, 4 or 5 years.
Well, typically the police are out looking for criminal issues for the yards and buildings. And
I
there's
understand.
only 5 guys out there driving around and, like I said, that's what we
Madam-
prioritize, and, you know, that for what we're trying to do to protect the city is a little bit lower on the priority. But like I said, we could move it up if you want. If you want us to go out there and make a big push, I can send my guys out and they can hit everyone in the city.
So I'm not saying that, but, you know, if somebody's getting away with it for so long, you know, let's say 20 years, and all of a sudden you come down on them, rightfully so, they're gonna be mad. You know, so if we don't enforce our ordinances routinely, year after year after year, it's the same thing with our house maintenance. You know, if you go to a house and you start citing the house, okay, and it hasn't been cited the last 3 years, and they found nothing 3 years ago, all of a sudden 3 years later, they find all these violations, it's not fair to the homeowner. But, just my opinion. But
Mrs. Finney, did you have something to say?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chairman. I remember, and Chief, I don't even know when it was, we met about this a long time ago, and I think the consensus was that Mayfield Heights is really a landscape per se community, and we would try to, if a resident was upset, yes, we would go follow up on the complaint. One of the things we had recommended to people, I think you remember, is getting those magnets that come off the sides of the, you know, if they own their own business. But the bottom line was, as we said, what are we gonna do, drive up and down the street and tell everybody they have to get rid of their vehicles? It just didn't make sense, and there's gonna be a lot of angry people. So I actually think the way you're doing it now, I very rarely get a complaint about it. Actually, I did though on the one on Woodrow, the food truck.
I mean, it's not a
that I did.
van, it's a food truck.
I got one on that.
And just a guess, I know nothing about it because it came today, but if it's a food truck, is there food inside of it? Is there, I mean, you know, that breeds rodents. I mean, you know, you don't know what that breeds. I mean, a vehicle with a ladder is one situation, but a food truck sounds like another. Mrs. Snyder.
Isn't it usual that you'll give some warnings, like 2 or 3 warnings before, as a courtesy to the homeowner, before you'll issue the citation?
Yeah, that's what I just explained. Usually Corporal Woods will meet with them, tell them that you're in violation, and then give them, you know, like a week to get it, make arrangements, because most people, if you own the vehicle and don't have a business to put it at, you probably have to find somewhere to put it, and so we usually give them a little bit of a grace period to find somewhere. We had this is the same issue we had with parking behind buildings. We did it down at the restaurant,
Bob Evans.
the one down at the sub shop, Sharpies. They had 3 vehicles back there. We worked with getting them out. It took us 2.5 months going to court several times, and we eventually got them out of there. But we got complaints, and we wanted to get them out.
Where was that?
It's the one next to Sonic, the sub shop. They had like 3 vehicles in the back, and they were tires were. I mean, one of them was there for supposedly 5 years. The one person said. But like I said, we got the complaint. We went back there, and it took us literally 2.5 months to get them out because it was involved in court. We cited them, and then you have to wait for court dates and things like that. We're not opposed to doing it. I'm just saying that's how we do it, and we'd be spending a lot of time in court over, you know, yard violations, which would take away from making criminal
burglars.
arrests and things like that.
Anything else for the chief? Thanks, chief. Okay, is there any other discussion? Have we said it all? Yes. Okay, so if you are in agreement with the vote of BZA, you will vote in granting this variant. I'm sorry, if you are in agreement with BZA in granting the variance, you will vote yes. If you feel you would like to reverse or modify the BZA vote, you will vote no. Roll call on the vote. Mr. DeJohn.
Yeah, I just want to make sure everyone understands the vote, so can we go around the room and ask them if they understand? I've heard before that people have, on this body.
Well, I think we're all intelligent council people. I find that insulting.
If you go along with BZA, who has granted this variance, you will say yes. If you feel you would like to reverse or modify, or you don't want to go along with the variance, you will vote no. So now we're going to have roll call on the motion to approve.
Mr. Mercurio?
No.
Mrs. Finney?
No.
Mrs. Sabetta?
No.
Mr. DeJohn?
No.
Mrs. Snyder?
No.
Mr. Mano?
No.
Mrs. Tressi?
No. Resolution 2017-61 has been overturned. Let's move on to Resolution 2017-62. Mr. Schmidlin.
Thank you. Resolution 2017-62, a resolution confirming the action of the Board of Zoning Appeals of the City of Mayfield Heights and granting to Brian Constantine, CBRE/SKYE Group, on behalf of Golden Gate Plaza, 6420 Mayfield Road, a 33.8 variance to construct a 53.8 wide multi-tenant ground sign along the front of the plaza adjacent to Mayfield Road. The design being the same as submitted with the application. Cuyahoga County Permanent Parcel Number 862-31-001.
Is there a motion to suspend the rules? Moved by Mrs. Sabetta, seconded by Mrs. Snyder. Roll call on the motion to suspend.
Mrs. Snyder?
Yes.
Mr. DeJohn?
Yes.
Mr. Mano?
Yes.
Mr. Mercurio?
Yes.
Mrs. Sabetta?
Yes.
Mrs. Finney?
Yes.
Mrs. Tressi?
Yes. Do I have a motion to approve? Moved by Mrs. Snyder, seconded by Mr. Mercurio. This is case number 1117A. It came from BZA, where the applicant, CBRE Sky Group, requested a variance to erect a 53-foot, 8-inch monument sign at the front of Golden Gate Plaza. It is a variance of 33 feet, 8 inches, which does not meet our design review manual, which states only a maximum width of 20 feet. The variance did receive a unanimous approval from BZA. Mr. Mercurio, would you like to add anything?
That's correct. There was unanimous approval. Just so council knows, the previous sign that was there was 40 feet in width, so this one will be a little bit bigger. I know the applicant is here if he wants to add anything, but I know he has been working with the Architectural Review Board on this, and this sign will be, I guess, on a mound, if that's correct, and it will block actually the view of the drive-through from Chick-fil-A. And another thing we took into consideration is just that, you know, they're trying to get regional tenants there, and those tenants are going to want sign space. So we think that'll help fill up Golden Gate Plaza.
Thank you. Mr. Constantine, can I just ask you a quick question, if you would please step to the podium?
Brian Constantine, 1100 Superior Avenue, Cleveland, Ohio.
So I just, I know what the length of the sign is 53.8. What is the height?
Is 7'6".
And what is the height of that sign that was there?
Believe it was 9'8", somewhere around there. It was a little bit taller than the one that we're proposing.
I have one other thing. So I have one more question. I know you also want the sign in the back of the property.
Yes.
But are you still going to want this sign?
No.
Okay. Just thought I'd ask. I don't know if anyone remembers, but they discussed having this tall sign, and I was just...
Yeah, no, we've done away with that.
Good answer. Good answer. Okay, that was my other question. And if that sky, the sky diving place, if in fact they were to come, I noticed in your, the design layout that you did for all of the shopping center with the new facades, et cetera, that there was some wild and crazy sign around that building. Would you?
That deal's pretty much done. They've kind of quit expanding at the moment, so it's
okay.
off the table at the moment, and don't see it coming back at all.
Okay, because it looked like a pretty ominous sign that was out there that...
Oh, I agree.
Okay, all right. Are there any, Mr. DeJohn?
Do you have a drawing of this that you can show the residents?
Not on me, I don't.
You can take mine if you want to show them.
You want to set it right on the, yeah. Yes, you've been here plenty of times.
So my question is that wood?
It's a fiber cement board, the same that we're using on the feature. It's all the same materials that we're using on the
facade?
Yeah, the rest of the plaza.
And the gray background on the sign, is that, what kind of material is that?
That's like a Lexan, a plastic.
And it's gray?
It's gonna actually be white. This was just a poor rendition color.
So, and lit up then, right?
Yeah.
Thank you.
And the mound is going to be behind this sign?
Well, you'll have the mound on either side of the sign.
On either side.
And it'll be landscaped, and then the sign will sit in between. So we're fully screening that drive-through.
And I noticed on your plan, is there a walkway that goes from our sidewalk in front of the cars that are in the...
There is, yes.
Okay.
And then we use a different material going through there, so it differentiates, you know, the drive-through from the crosswalk, if you will.
Any other questions? Mr. Mano?
That fiberboard, is that fairly salt resistant?
Very much so, yes.
So the salt dust up there isn't going to affect that?
Correct.
From the rendering, it looks like it's going to be a very pretty sign.
Yeah, we were trying to keep it, you know, we got architectural review board approval on Thursday evening, and then, you know, they liked it a lot.
And the sign in the back that you are considering is going to have the same material?
Yeah, exact same materials.
Okay. Any other questions? Thank you. Oh, Mrs. Snyder, I'm sorry, I didn't see your hand.
Is the Golden Gate lit up too, the words?
Yes, what it is the Golden Gate is backlit, so it'll kind of like reflect off the back of the sign and kind of give it like almost like a halo effect around the letters. And then there will be the same signs on the building to identify the shopping center Golden Gate.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much. Are there any other questions before Mr. Constantine sits down? Nope, but thank you. Again, BZA granted this variance. If you agree with this BZA vote, you will vote yes. If you feel you want to reverse the vote, you will vote no. Roll call on the motion to approve.
Mrs. Sabetta?
Yes.
Mr. Mano?
Yes.
Mr. Mercurio?
Yes.
Mrs. Finney?
Yes.
Mrs. Snyder?
Yes.
Mr. DeJohn?
Yes.
Mrs. Tressi?
Yes. Resolution 2017-62 has been adopted. We'll next move on to Resolution 2017-63. Mr. Schmidlin.
Thank you. Resolution 2017-63, a resolution confirming the action of the Board of Zoning Appeals of the City of Mayfield Heights in granting to Brian Constantine, getting late, sorry, CBRE/Sky Group on behalf of Golden Gate Plaza 6420 Mayfield Road that no variance is required to construct a second monument ground sign at the rear of Marcel Road access drive of Golden Gate Plaza. The design being the same as submitted with the application. Cuyahoga County permanent parcel number 862-30001.
Okay, this was case 1117-B. It came from BZA. They requested a variance to erect this monument sign at the rear of the property. And oh, I'm so sorry. Thanks. It is getting late. Mr. Schmidlin and I are getting tired here. Is there a motion to suspend the rules? Moved by Mrs. Finney, seconded by Mr. DeJohn. Roll call on the motion to suspend.
Mr. Mano?
Yes.
Mr. Mercurio?
Yes.
Mr. DeJohn?
Yes.
Mrs. Sabetta?
Yes.
Mrs. Finney?
Yes.
Mrs. Snyder?
Yes.
Mrs. Tressi?
Yes. Do I have a motion to approve? Moved by Mrs. Snyder, seconded by Mr. DeJohn. Okay, now, my little speech. Case 1117-B came from BZA for the monument sign at the rear of the property at Golden Gate, and it was determined by BZA that according to the design standards, section F2, that the applicant does not need a variance. Mr. Mercurio?
Correct.
Like to?
There was
Correct.
unanimous approval. Let me take a step back. We looked at it two different ways. First off, there is no identification back there, so we did feel that it was a practical difficulty. Second off, you're only allowed one primary monument sign on the property. The primary monument sign has the name of the shopping center along with the names of the tenants. This sign is a project identification sign, which is different. It just says Golden Gate on there. There is no tenant information on there. Now, the standards say you can only have one primary monument sign, which it does, but this one is a project identification sign. And the standards do not say that you cannot have a primary monument sign along with a project identification sign. So that was our reasoning for believing that it did not need the variance.
But isn't the sign with tenant names direction?
Information.
No, it's not a directional sign, if that's what you're asking. It's just an identifies the tenants in there.
Identifies the tenants.
I can read, I have the manual here if you'd like to, I can tell you what the, a monument sign can advertise multiple tenants located within a development boundary. These signs are supported entirely by their own ground-mounted structural solid base. That's the primary monument sign that's going in front.
In front, exactly.
And back is a project identification sign, and that's to identify the project or development identification only. And further, the standard says that an F1 sign, which is the primary monument sign, shall be permitted, each phase development shall be permitted to have only one sign type F1.
Okay. Questions, discussion? Mr. DeJean?
Mr. Constantine, do you have any plans to make this sign, an identification sign?
No, just gonna have the name of the shopping center.
So you don't plan to put any tenants on that sign whatsoever?
Correct.
Thank you.
What will the dimensions of this sign be?
I believe 12 feet.
I have that here. The whole thing will be, looks like 12 feet 6 wide and 5 foot 6 tall.
Thank you.
Any other discussion or questions for Mr. Constantine? Mayor, did you want to say something? Oh, hear you talking here. Oh, okay. Thank you. I believe there's no other questions for you. Roll call on the motion to approve.
Mr. DeJean?
Yes.
Mrs. Snyder?
Yes.
Mrs. Finney?
Yes.
Mr. Mercurio?
Yes.
Mr. Mano?
Yes.
Mrs. Sabetta?
Yes.
Mrs. Tressi?
Yes. Resolution 2017-63 has been approved. We'll move on now to Resolution 2017-64. Mr. Schmidlin.
2017-64, a resolution approving the admission of the City of Beechwood as a new member of the Norma Self-Insurance Pool, Inc.
Is there a motion to suspend the rules? Moved by Mr. Mano, seconded by Mrs. Sabetta. Roll call on the motion to suspend.
Mrs. Finney?
Yes.
Mrs. Sabetta?
Yes.
Mrs. Snyder?
Yes.
Mr. Mano?
Yes.
Mr. DeJean?
Yes.
Mr. Mercurio?
Yes.
Mrs. Tressi?
Yes. Do I have a motion to approve? Moved by Mrs. Finney, seconded by Mrs. Snyder. We received the memo from Mr. Tribby addressing the request from the Board of Trustees of Norma Self-Insurance Pool that Mayfield Heights, as one of the members of Norma, must adopt a resolution approving the City of Beechwood as a new member. The mayor mentioned this as well in his report to us. Any other comments, Mr. Tribby?
No, like I indicated, Norma's been in existence since 1987. Started out with 6 cities, and now we've doubled it to 12.
Mr. DeJean?
So, Mr. Tribby, is a bigger pool better? So you try to get as many cities as you can in this pool?
It's not necessarily bigger is better, but the fact that you're have a reasonable number, you know what your other cities, what their structure is, and also, of course, Beechwood is a very sound financial community, and it's close to many of the other Norma cities, so it would be a good fit.
So have you denied
No,
communities from being in?
we've never denied membership before. If we thought that there was some reason we would not want them, we would not encourage them to even apply.
Thank you.
Any other comments or discussion? Roll call on the motion to approve.
Mr. Mercurio?
Yes.
Mrs. Finney?
Yes.
Mrs. Sabetta?
Yes.
Mr. DeJean?
Yes.
Mrs. Snyder?
Yes.
Mr. Mano?
Yes.
Mrs. Tressi?
Yes. Resolution 2017-64 has been approved. We will move on to Resolution 2017-65. Mr. Schmidlin.
2017-65, a resolution authorizing the mayor to submit an application to participate in the Ohio Public Works Commission State Capital Improvement and Local Transportation Improvement Programs and declaring an emergency.
Is there a motion to suspend the rules? Moved by Mr. Mercurio, seconded by Mrs. Finney. Roll call on the motion to suspend.
Mrs. Snyder?
Yes.
Mr. DeJohn?
Yes.
Mr. Mano?
Yes.
Mr. Mercurio?
Yes.
Mrs. Sabetta?
Yes.
Mrs. Finney?
Yes.
Mrs. Tressi?
Yes. Do I have a motion to approve? Moved by Mrs. Sabetta, seconded by Mr. Mano. This resolution has been introduced by the mayor to authorize the city to participate in the Ohio Public Work Commission State Capital Improvement and Local Transportation Improvement Program. Mayor, do you want to add anything?
This is just for applying for some work from Lander Road, from Marnell to Ridgeberry resurfacing.
I'm sorry, Lander Road.
From Marnell to Ridgeberry.
Oh, I'm sorry. Marnell to Ridgeberry. Have we been a part of this commission in the past? Ever?
I'm not sure if Joe or Dan can answer that question.
This organization has been in existence since 1987. Have we ever been a part of it before?
Not that I'm aware of. It's basically it's an application for a grant to pay for a portion of the road improvements from Marnell to Ridgeberry. So the grants are due October 5th of this year. It's a pretty tight window. The Lander Road, at least that portion, has been on our for the 5-year plan for improvements. So we looked at an opportunity with the crash data and the amount of traffic on the road that we hope would be a good project for them to go ahead and do the grant. Numbers wise, if you care to know, I think construction costs about 1.1 million. We're looking to ask for about 680,000.
Did we know about this organization, this commission, when we put together that 5-year road program?
Can't answer that. I didn't put the 5-year plan together.
Mr. Finaro, did we know about this organization, this commission, when you put together that 5-year road program? I didn't see you raise your pen. Okay.
Well, it's my turn.
You have to watch that pencil.
Put together that 5-year program, and no, we didn't go that avenue. It's one avenue that GPD opened up to us, bringing funding in like they said they were going to, so this is a great avenue and good opportunity for us.
Yeah, that being said, it's very competitive, so if you don't put the application in, you have no chance.
Right.
We're gonna
Very
attempt to do
true.
it. Time we're spending is part of the retainer that you pay, so it's really no money out of your pocket for the application. You get the grant, I think everybody will be happy if we don't.
So
Hopefully
you'll go
still
for,
be happy,
but you can go for another grant for, at a later date.
Yeah, you can
This
apply
is-
for this once a year. It's, like I say, it's a pretty competitive program, but I think based on accident data, based on traffic, we haven't applied for one, so, there's some points in that. Obviously, the less you ask for, the better points you get, so there's a trade-off as to, how much you're asking for versus how much risk on that, so. But we think we have a pretty competitive application, or we will have one.
That's
So
great.
Your legislation is just part of the application we need.
If we don't try, we'll never know if we were going to receive a grant or not. So it makes you wonder why we haven't done it in all these years. So thank you,
There's a lot
GPD.
there's a lot of grants out there that,
Right,
some of you just gotta look at and see if they make sense, so.
thank you. Any questions for Mr. Gerson before he sits down?
Just,
Mr. DeJohn?
thank you. Why only to Marnell? Why don't you take it all the way to Cedar?
We could, I think it's a matter of, we looked at, just looking at the Marnell through Ridgeberry's, in my opinion, probably the worst section of it. If you go all the way to Marnell, or all the way to Cedar, I think the estimate was like 2.1 million. You get into that, again, it starts getting into, if you go for a 2.1 million project, if you ask for $1 million, probably your likelihood is maybe not getting it.
So wouldn't it help if, since our corporate parks are down closer to Cedar?
We have another grant for the other side, so instead of combining them all in one, they're separated in 2 different grants. So from Marnell to Cedar, we already have an application.
Thank you.
Mr. Tribby?
The Ohio Public Works Commission, they did participate in our Mayfield Road improvement from Lander to our east boundary. We have 2 loans outstanding with them, and I don't recall if we actually got a grant as a part of the Mayfield Road project. We may have, but I do know we've had participation by them in the past.
That's great.
That is correct. You can ask for a grant or a loan. In this case, we've asked for a grant, but you can do grant and loan. So there's some opportunity. You're right.
Oh yeah, we've had their participation before. In fact, they even gave us a planning loan when we did the western portion of Mayfield, going back to I forget what year that was, a long time ago.
Time ago, right. Thanks, Mr. Tribby. Thank you, Mr. Gerson.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions or discussion? Roll call on the motion to approve.
Mrs. Sabetta?
Yes.
Mr. Mano?
Yes.
Mr. Mercurio?
Yes.
Mrs. Finney?
Yes.
Mrs. Snyder?
Yes.
Mr. DeJohn?
Yes.
Mrs. Tressi?
Yes. Resolution 2017-65 has been approved. We will now move on to ordinances. Mr. Schmidland.
Number 2017-19, an ordinance amending ordinance numbers 2017-9 and 2017-16, the appropriation expenditures of the City of Mayfield Heights, State of Ohio, for the fiscal year ending December 31st, 2017.
Is there a motion to suspend the rules? Moved by Mrs. Finney, seconded by Mrs. Snyder. Roll call on the motion to suspend.
Mr. Mano?
Yes.
Mr. Mercurio?
Yes.
Mr. DeJohn?
Yes.
Mrs. Sabetta?
Yes.
Mrs. Finney?
Yes.
Mrs. Snyder?
Yes.
Mrs. Tressi?
Yes. Do I have a motion to approve? Moved by Mrs. Sabetta. Seconded by Mr. Mercurio. The ordinance is requesting council's approval to provide additional appropriation to the general fund for the Division of Fire to cover the cost of the air compressor and the fill tank purchase, and to issue checks to those, refund checks to the Hillcrest Technical Rescue Team, which has been merged into the Heights Hillcrest Technical Rescue Team. Mr. Tribby, would you like to add anything at all?
This just gives me the authority to issue checks for the closing out of that Hillcrest Tech Rescue Team, and of course you already approved going out for bids for the air compressor. The grant from FEMA will cover 90% of that cost. This is just a formality in appropriating the funds. The bids will be coming in October 10th, and this will allow us to sign a contract.
Thank you, Mr. Tribby. Are there any questions or discussion? Roll call on the motion to approve.
Mr. DeJohn?
Yes.
Mrs. Snyder?
Yes.
Mrs. Finney?
Yes.
Mr. Mercurio?
Yes.
Mr. Mano?
Yes.
Mrs. Sabetta?
Yes.
Mrs. Tressi?
Yes. Ordinance number 2017-19 has been adopted. As there are no motions on the agenda this evening, we'll move on to new business and comments from council. Would anyone like to? Mrs. Sabetta.
Thank you, Madam President. I would just like to thank Lisa for giving us a heads up on the presentation of Robert's Rules of Order, the newly revised. I did have a chance to attend that, and it was very informative. The gentleman who ran the presentation was very open to conversation. So it was less than a class and more of a, I would say, advisory committee. It was very good. Thank you.
Thank you. Anything else that council would like to add? Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Moved.
Everyone raised their hand. Come on now.
First time we all woke up now.
That was the first time everybody's hand went up. Okay, so Mr. Mano did the motion, and Mrs. Finney and Mr. Mercurio and Mr. DeJohn did second and third. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Our meeting is now adjourned. Thank you very much.